Hey there, Nick Janatakis here. In this video, I just wanted to let you know that I'm no longer going to be posting weekly episodes of the Running in Production podcast, and this isn't some clickbaity title where now it's going to be like daily episodes or something like that. I really do think the podcast is coming to an end. So I started this in October 2019, posted over 100 episodes here, basically one episode per week for a couple of years, and I am starting to get really burnt out when it comes to the editing process of doing the podcast. And I do have a blog post here, which will be up by the time that you watch this video. I'll leave a link to this one in the description. But yeah, so taking an indefinite break from the podcast, 100 episodes, 2 years, I think it might be time for an extended break. But before we really get into this, I do want to say here that for any listener out there who likes the show, I am really, truly sorry that the show is likely coming to an end. And, if you share the show with a couple of your friends or colleagues or anything like that, I really do appreciate that one a lot. But yeah, the TLDR, or I guess, I will go through this blog post here. I'm not going to narrate it word for word, but I feel like it is good to share of, why the show is stopping. And I actually really genuinely enjoy recording the actual show, like talking to a new developer every week where, we go over how they build and deploy their web application, right? That could be a solo developer on their first project or, a multi-million-dollar company. It's super fun to actually record the show. But yeah, the editing and everything else around it, it's just seriously burning me out. Because I don't know if you know this, but every episode basically takes about one full-time day to complete, end to end. And it's not just one chunk of one day. It's a couple hours here, a couple hours there, doing this at night, doing this on a Sunday. There is just a lot of time and things to think about. For example, finding a new guest. This is just a constant, ever looming 24/7 pressure to find someone new to come onto the show. And this could be anything from just emailing someone directly or a company directly, or it could be posting on something like, the Flask or Django subreddit on Reddit. And, sometimes you don't get responses from the emails, or sometimes 40 people fill out the form to be on the show, and then you have to schedule things for literally the next 9 months. And it's very feast or famine, and that's kind of cool in a way. It's nice to have them all pre-scheduled and ready to lock in. But yeah, it's just ever-looming pressure to find someone new. And then there's also just scheduling the episodes, right? So it's a global thing where, lots of guests are coming from different countries. Europe from the US here, it's a 6 to 7 hour difference in time. Sometimes Australia, it's a 12-hour difference in time. Some people work during the day and they can't do it until the evening. But then evening their time is middle of the day for me, which is not too bad. But there's just a lot of variables there, right? Trying to find a good time for both of us to be available. The recording the show, it is actually the most fun part. And this could be sometimes an hour or 2 hours. I think the longest episode may have been just above 2 hours, 2 hours and 2 minutes or something. But it really just varies, right, based on the show. So sometimes they're an hour, sometimes they're two. There's no really, set in stone thing here. And but the killer part for me, it's basically, this is always something, right? But it's these two that are just causing the, extreme burnout aspect of it. Because editing, it takes a really long time. So I have no problem editing my own YouTube videos. Partly, I think, because they're video, it's kind of nice. I can throw in animations and sound effects and little things. It feels like it's a creative outlet. In a weird way, it feels like programming, but with visual blocks. But the podcast is purely audio, and I don't get that. But that's not really the main reason, I guess. For example, this is the podcast editing tool that I use. I know you can't read any of the text really because it's a little bit hard to read and super small. But, this is an example of one episode that's already been edited. And this episode happens to be 90 minutes long. We're basically looking at a timeline of about 10 minutes here. And every little black sliver that you see there is a cut I have to make during the editing process to remove what I would describe as filler content. So this is either a really long pause, or maybe someone makes a lip smacking noise, or an or an ah, or a stutter, or something like that. And then for me, on the bottom track there, you can see mostly it's the guest talking here, but I also just remove the guest's dead air over my voice here, just so their background noise doesn't interfere with my voice. And this actually is a really good example of someone who was an extremely fluent speaker, right? So there is very little cuts here, but there's a number here, 305 cuts to do a 90-minute episode. This number has been as high as 1,800 cuts to do roughly about the same duration of an episode. It is a really, really, really tedious process to basically go every couple of seconds, stop, cut, remove some filler word, rewind, re-listen to it, and then besides just doing the mechanics of the editing part, there's also doing all of the show notes here. So like if I click into whatever the latest episode here, a couple paragraphs really doesn't take long to write. This takes me a couple of minutes to do. At the end of the editing process, I just write like a summary of what happened. But, as I'm doing the actual like mechanical aspects of editing, I'm also writing these show notes here where basically every couple of minutes I'll kind of recap what was said, and it's like, motivation for using Flask and Python, or like best tips, or, something like Docker was considered, but, blah, blah, blah. And this also takes quite a lot of time, and something like this is also very, very hard to outsource. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself here because there's many things written in this post, but just know that these are all things I'm doing on my own, and when you add it all up at the end of the day, it is about a day's worth of work to get that all set up. And, also recording for an hour doesn't necessarily mean just 1 hour of real life time, right? You know how it is when it comes to like context switching and stuff. So I basically have to stop what I'm doing at least 10 minutes before the scheduled time, because got to prepare a couple of things like open up Zoom, open up this and that, get the recording set up on my end. And then usually, when the guest hops on the call, we just chat naturally about whatever for at least like 10 minutes, sometimes longer. Like it really depends on the guest. And that's just to, get used to talking to each other, put their mind at ease, make them feel comfortable. And that's, it's not like a high pressure thing. And that just takes a little bit. And then oftentimes, like after the actual show is done, we stop recording and everything is good to go. Oftentimes we'll definitely chat for like an extra 10, 20, 30 minutes. I've had a couple of guests where like literally we're chatting for 4 hours after the show, like until the middle of the night. It's super enjoyable. Like I love that stuff. And, I think other people do, because, these guests were involved with doing that stuff. And yeah, you just talk shop about whatever, right? It's very fun. And then like after the actual recording itself, like it's like in the middle of the day or something like that, like, I don't know, like I need a cool down period to basically decompress after that show, because before I can jump into the next thing, like the next context switch, like being on the ball for like a 2-hour in-depth, like engaging, genuine technical conversation with someone, that is like really, really mentally taxing. And also at the same time, it's kind of energizing. So like, by the end, like I just like want to run a marathon or something like that. So usually what I do is I'll go for like a long fast walk or a jog or something like that, just to basically hit the reset button. Now let's talk a little bit about like why stop doing all this? Like if I don't really like all this other stuff, can I just outsource that? And totally. However, like things aren't happening the way they need to happen for that to happen. So, maybe it's not meant to be, right? Like I don't know if the show is meant to be, and I really can't figure out why the show isn't growing. And, I put out a new episode every week for over 2 years, so I think I gave it a fair shot. I also try to optimize the site like to the best of my ability, right? I try to make it super easy so you can just, go to something like the podcast site here and filter by whatever tag that you want, right? So like 28 people are using Cloudflare. So if you want to read about someone who's using Cloudflare, you can go check it out, and then you can go to the show notes and basically go from there. Then there's also like, just writing the TLDR timestamps for each episode to make it easy to skim and glance around like where you want to jump in, instead of having to listen to, a 90-minute episode where you have no idea where anything is going on in the show. Yeah, I don't know what else to do to make the experience better, I guess. And I don't know. To me, I guess you have to go by the results, right? And if the results say that the show isn't growing in terms of like listenership, then there's got to be something wrong with the show. Like, is it the material? Is it me? Is it the guest? Like, I have no idea. I can't figure it out, and I cannot invest more time into this trying to figure that out, because I don't know. But it bugs me though, because yeah, quite a few people have emailed me or DM'd me on Twitter saying like literally like this is their favorite tech podcast, and they're happy that someone finally made a show around just how real folks and companies are actually building and deploying like real life web applications. And it is pretty decently rated on iTunes. It's like a 4.9 out of 8. Not a ton of ratings because listenership is kind of low. But yeah, I mean, when I look at the stats for things like iTunes on Spotify, about like 50% of folks complete the entire 1 to 2 hour episode. And like 75% of them at least make it through like the first third of the show before they start tapering off. But for a really long show, based on the stats that I've accumulated from looking on how other podcasts and things perform, like these are really strong numbers. Like people are engaged with basically the whole entire episode for almost all the episodes. And yeah, I mean, I never started the show right for like riches and glory, but we do live in a world where like I do have to eat, I have to pay bills, take care of family, and also think about my future and stuff like that. And I do work like a full work week, right? 45 hours, technically 40, but there's like a lunch break, etc. And I also put out these weekly blog posts and YouTube videos and other stuff. And I haven't posted a new course in 3 years, and it has nothing to do with being burnt out for making courses or like not wanting to do them anymore. I don't know. Like you get that point where like I can't just do all of this alone. And the podcast was like the thing that broke the camel's back, or a straw that broke the camel's back or something, because it's just too much to do. And it just not distracts me, but yeah, I don't know. It just messes me up mentally trying to do all of that. And then also not getting a return that allows me to like optimize the parts that I don't like. And yeah, I don't know. It just feels reckless to continue doing that instead of chipping away on something that is working a little bit better. Now, there is like an alternate reality, right? Like I would have loved to continue doing the show, like get sponsors, outsource all the editing, maybe create transcripts instead of the timestamp show notes, because realistically, like a normal audio editor or podcast editor probably don't know a huge amount about tech. Like they might, but these timestamp show notes are actually very difficult to do. Not difficult because like, well, I don't know, it's not difficult for me. I don't want to say that in like a conceited way because I know about all this tech stuff. So like when they're speaking about the last couple of minutes or about whatever, like I can just be like, okay, cool. Like we talked about feature flags and like swinging back to JSON B columns based on like something that was said before. Like that is easy for me to do notes on, but very hard for someone who isn't into tech to do notes on. So I think the only way moving forward, if this could ever work, would be creating human transcripts, like human reviewed ones, because I don't know, I don't want to be a jerk about all the machine learning or automated transcripts that I found, like every service, including like YouTube's own service, like it makes a lot of mistakes when it comes to technical terms and grammar mistakes and errors. And when you have multiple guests, like it becomes very, very hard to solve that problem. But machine reviewed ones, it costs a lot of money. And yeah, I mean, it would be amazing just to get this down to the point where all I have to do is show up and record the podcast and then somehow make some income from that. And, you know, that would be very nice. But it's super hard to find sponsors, right? When I only get about 2,000 downloads a month on average, but that is not per episode. That's total MP3 downloads, basically in a 30-day period of time after doing this for 2 years of weekly posts. So it's super hard to kind of track exact download numbers per episode, but yeah, I mean, we're talking like low hundreds at best. And that just isn't enough, right? I mean, it's not enough like for me to feel like not fulfilled, but it's not enough to get sponsors to move this to a level that it needs to be to make all of this work. Because it makes a lot of sense, right? Like if you're a business trying to make money, it's super hard to justify putting money into something where you're not going to get a positive ROI, right? Like a return on investment. It's also a tricky balance because you can't scale down sponsorship rates to total downloads and make it work when the numbers are low, because it would be pretty silly to be like, okay, let's spend all this time trying to set up like a sponsorship deal. And then I have to compromise the show with an ad read because let's be completely honest here, inserting an ad into a podcast is absolutely compromising the integrity of the show. Like not maybe integrity, and we'll get to that one, but you know, it distracts from the core information in the podcast. But you know, if you start scaling these numbers really low and I compromise the show and like it's for like $11.41, it's just not worth it for anyone, where anyone in this case is the company doing the sponsor, myself, and most importantly, like you guys too, right? Like, yeah, it just doesn't feel like it's worth it on any end. Plus, I'm also like really weird about things like this. And you know, from watching potentially other videos I have on YouTube, like I don't put ads and sponsorships in any of my videos. Like, I don't know, I can't sleep at night just pitching services that I haven't extensively used firsthand. I never want this ever to come down to like accepting money to help sell something I don't know about while reading, you know, from some script that they gave me, where I'm kind of just like parroting the script without like first-hand knowledge using the thing. Now, you know, yeah, that's a complete violation of trust between myself and basically anyone listening. And it also makes me think like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not cut out for this type of business. But with that said, though, there are like many opportunities for great sponsors on this show because, you know, I am in the same business as what material the podcast covers, right? So if we jump back up to here, go to the podcast section, all these little tags here, there's not hundreds of services, but like over 100 different services like DigitalOcean and Uptime Robot and all these other ones that I do use on a regular basis. With that said, you know, blah, 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 lots of opportunities for sponsors. But like, it just goes back to, sponsorships are just kind of like a feast or famine situation, right? So it's like, you really need to grow large before you can get sponsors. But if you can't grow, then, you know, kind of maybe it's time to stop. And unfortunately, businesses don't have the same mindset as me or individual, right? Like I personally don't mind linking at all to all these services for free or openly talking about them positively for years with no expectations or compensation or entitlement or anything like that. That's just how I am, right? I guess deep down seeing others succeed is actually what makes me happy. But, you know, I kind of joke here, like this isn't meant to be like a sob story or like a fuck the system post. It's the reality of situation. So what to expect moving forward? Well, just want to let you know that there's no longer going to be weekly episodes of the show. I do have 6 unedited episodes left to publish, and I absolutely will publish them all. I feel like I owe that to the folks who recorded those episodes with me, so I will power through them, but probably just going to post those maybe once a month. And after that, that is probably it. I'll continue to keep the domain up. I'll host all the episodes. I don't mind paying for that one out of pocket because who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? Maybe something will change and I'll resume where I left off, or, maybe I'll just do a one-off episode here or there. But I do want to set expectations super clear that, with the way things are currently going, I would consider once these episodes are done, that is probably going to be it. And I don't know, I decided to write this first before recording a video just to have a clearer thought process, because I always feel better writing things out before just hitting the recorder on the video. Although most of my videos, I don't do this at all, very few of them, only a couple of them out of the last 100 or so. But I don't know, I feel like it feels pretty good to fail. And I don't really see this as a total failure or a failure at all, because I really am a firm believer that everything you do in life leads to something else, right? You're basically an accumulation of the choices that you've made. Now, if you just want to talk about brass tacks, bottom line business, total catastrophic failure of the worst degree, right? So I put in literally 1,000 hours of my own time into the podcast and walked away with a net loss in actual money from hosting and whatnot. And that's 1,000 hours that could have gone towards making an entire brand new course. Been talking about the deployment course for freaking years. Why isn't it getting it done? Too many things going on, or maybe those 1,000 hours could have been potentially doing something else, or, maybe just sitting back and relaxing a bit. But I don't see it as a failure, right? I see this as having had 100 different conversations with 100 different folks beforehand. I learned something new in every single episode, either something about the tech itself or maybe just how others think about problems and what they've learned along the way. That stuff to me is that's the good stuff. And I definitely feel like a better person, and the lessons I've learned from all this, I feel like it definitely improved current me as well as future and present me, right? And I regret nothing, right? And as for feeling good, feeling good to fail or whatever, after deciding to write this, I'm super happy because, I'm finally coming to terms with this decision, and now I can focus on doing other stuff without really feeling guilty or letting anyone down. So I'm pretty sure some folks are going to be disappointed that the show won't be around, at least in its current form, for the foreseeable future. But at the same time, I don't know, there's some closure to this, right? Because even now, I haven't posted an episode in a couple of weeks, and have gotten a couple of emails Nick, what happened to the show? Are you going to be posting the next episode soon, etc.? And I don't know. I hope this post and video helps to let you know why that hasn't been happening and will not happen, I guess, in the future. But, with that said, in the comments below, let me know what your favorite episode was. Or, maybe even more importantly, what's something that you tried recently and maybe, I don't want to use the word fail, but decided maybe it's not for you, or, something in a similar vein, maybe not necessarily podcast related, but maybe software development or something like that. Yeah, but with that said, before I wrap this one up, I do want to let you know that the site has been open source on GitHub the whole time. So I'll leave a link to this one too in the description if you want to check it out. Yeah, on that note, thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next video.